From the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Talking day 8 of 49ers training camp. What are those high volume days that Kyle Shanahan was talking about in his presser on just the other day, just yesterday, in fact. He was talking about it on Thursday, what it was going to look like when they go to these high moments, and it did not disappoint. There was lots of reps for the quarterbacks. There's going to be conversation about that. But also there was some big-time plays that happened out on the field. So the 49ers are going through a process when they're going through these blocks of days. It's going a easy day, right coming off that day off, they're going easy. Then they're going very heavy, and then they're going medium. So it's kind of how they're going to be doing it as they transition and kind of get these players' bodies where they're supposed to be. They're building up to 40 reps for what they're going to do at joint practices against the Las Vegas Raiders on the 10th and 11th of this month. So very close to that happening, and they're pushing in that direction. The 49ers also have had some roster moves that they've been making. I'm going to go over those as well. But we're going to go through training camp and talk about what happened in day 8 in Santa Clara as the 49ers are continuing the process of building towards these preseason games. Also going to hear from Steve Wilks in this episode, and he talks about Deshaun Jameson. So if you're a Deshaun Jameson fan, you're going to want to hear this. He talks about the linebacker battle for the starting Sam job. Also, he talks about competition between Drake Jackson and Clelin Ferrell and competition for all players. And I'm going to go through all of that, and I'm also going to go through the offensive numbers and what happened at practice. But leading off, I'm going to start with the 49ers went ahead and put defensive end Darryl Johnson on the IR, and Darryl Johnson probably flew under the radar for most when they signed him in the offseason, but he's a really big dude, and he's been getting good reps for the 49ers so far through training camp, and they put him on IR, so we'll wait to hear exactly what was the case there. And then the 49ers signed a defensive end Dalen Hayes, and Dalen Hayes is an interesting player because he was drafted in 2021 by the Baltimore Ravens, 5th round, pick 171 out of Notre Dame. And he really hasn't done anything in the NFL. His third game into his career in 2021, he suffered an ankle injury that forced him to go on IR for the rest of 2021. They basically brought him back towards the end of 2021, and then they put him right back onto the IR again. So he has not played in the NFL since that. He's only logged one game in the NFL, so he's really an unknown commodity. But you're talking about a guy that's 6'3", almost 6'4", close to 260 pounds, runs a 4.7 40. So his career in the NFL is pretty non-existent, but it's a guy that the Ravens felt was going to be a 5th-round talent. And going back and watching a little bit of what he did at Notre Dame, I got a sense that he's definitely got athleticism. And we'll see, what Chris Kasarik is able to get out of Dalen Hayes. But right now, we just don't know. We haven't seen it translate to the NFL, and the Ravens cut him and without him really getting to see anything. So this is a guy the 49ers are taking a chance on. But really, this is a back-end player that, hey, if he shows up and he shows out, you've got yourself a very talented player that can help. And if he doesn't, potentially you got a practice squad guy that you can continue to develop. But right now, the 49ers need to make sure they have depth. So that way they can get through the joint practices versus the Raiders. And ultimately, the preseason game against the Raiders, which will more than likely see most of the 49ers starters, if not all of them, not play in that game. So it's a kind of disheartening thing because I think Darryl Johnson was somebody that I wanted to see play in preseason, but excited to see what potential Dalen Hayes has. So I feel for Johnson, and in the same regard, I want to see what Hayes can do. Also, since my last recording yesterday, the 49ers had signed cornerback Anthony Everett. He had been with the Baltimore Ravens and then spent last season with the Raiders. He ended up on IR as well, a couple stints last year, but they brought him in because they had to put Terrence Mitchell, who they had signed right before or right during training camp, they had to put him on the IR. So the 49ers have had a couple of injuries to some of their depth players that they've had to replace with other players. Where the difference is Anthony Everett has actually played a lot of snaps in the NFL, and he's definitely had some success. In 2021, when he played for the Baltimore Ravens, he started 14 games and had 3 interceptions. So he's got a lot of potential. He covered and played well for Baltimore. So there's something there. He's going to have to, of course, learn this 49ers defense and compete. And he's getting here a little late, so we'll see. But the 49ers had to make a move, and they brought in another veteran player at the cornerback position, which cornerback position is very talented, and I can't wait to talk about that later. So 49ers training camp had the most reps that they've had so far. The first team offense got 32 reps, and this is what Kyle Shanahan talked about. It was last week when I was at practice on, I think it was Monday, that they did their most reps. They were doing their low, high, medium, and so that's when they had their other high one, and it was they did they had 27 reps. So it was a total of 40 reps, for the first team offense. So the 49ers went all the way up to 40, doing a really good job of building up to where they wanted to be. And we got to see, a lot of snaps for Brock Purdy, of course, as he's getting all those first team reps, and then Trey Lance and Sam Darnold continue to go some of those reps, splitting those reps with the twos. And then Brandon Allen was back to getting reps again in this practice. So Brock Purdy, 40 reps. He was 18 of 27 with an interception. That interception was by Tashawn Gibson. Trey Lance had 22 reps, so about half of the reps of Brock Purdy, and he was 8 of 11. And then Sam Darnold, exactly the same amount of reps as Trey Lance, 22, 12 of 14. And Brandon Allen had 12 reps for 5 of 8. So the 49ers, reps, that's kind of how it's looking right now. 40, 22, 22, 12. That's how Kyle Shanahan decided to break it down. Of course, tomorrow, Brock Purdy will not practice, which means Trey Lance and Sam Darnold will get his reps. It will be a medium day, so it won't be less reps than what they got on Thursday, but it could be, it'll be a little bit more than that. So in between what they got today and what they did on Thursday, probably pretty close to the number of reps that Trey Lance and Sam Darnold got today in their drills, and that's about 22 to 25 reps. Seem pretty realistic for a medium day for the 49ers. So quarterbacks overall, they're all still doing the same sorts of things. They're making plays. Brock Purdy was pushing the ball down the field today, and he was taking shots to George Kittle. Kittle goes up over the top of Dre Greenlaw, makes a spectacular catch. Just one of those ones that's a 50-50 ball, and you're trusting your player to be able to make it, and George Kittle did. There's questions. Hey, Brock Purdy probably could have got that ball a little bit farther down the field. But you know what? When it comes down to it, it's a completion and a good play. And I don't care who the quarterback is. If you get it up there and your player makes the play, I'm sure there's some things you would like to fine-tune, but in the grand scheme of things, it just doesn't matter as long as the reception is good as far as the results go. And he also hit Deebo Samuel in the pylon for an acrobatic catch in which Deebo went up over the top of Charvarius Ward. It was really a nice play, spectacular to watch. And then Deebo Samuel stayed on the ground for a while. A little bit of a scary moment, but when you see that he landed flat on his back, you know for sure that he probably just knocked the wind out of him. He ended up being okay and, laughing and having a good time with Brock Purdy on the sideline. So Brock Purdy was out there delivering the football. He made some very nice, timely throws. He made some inaccurate and also, an interception to Tashawn Gibson. So we are seeing some mistakes from Brock Purdy, but I think this was a practice that was very interesting because he was taking shots, taking chances, and really displaying that he had the versatility to go short, intermediate, and to go deep, and to go outside the numbers on both and inside the hashes, so he could cover the entire field. And I think he was putting that on display, and Kyle Shanahan's play calling was on point and giving him the opportunity with them going through not just 11 on 11s, but also moving the football. The Brock Purdy move the football portion was highly successful. They moved the ball at a rapid pace, and that's where you want to have your most success is moving the football. It's the most like a real game situation. So Brock did good. Trey continues to show up and show out and do the things that he's supposed to do. Consistency is where he's at. His one bugaboo is those short passes, and he struggled again, throwing a couple in the ground. But overall, Trey Lance continues to have definitely quickened up his clock as far as releasing the football. He looks calm. He looks confident. He's able to scramble and use his legs, but still keep his eyes down the field. He's able to rip the ball down the field, especially to the outside, the numbers. So I thought Trey Lance continues to look good. He continues to make big throws. I'm excited to see what's going to happen when Trey Lance goes against the Las Vegas Raiders. I expect him and Sam Darnold to get some really good reps. It's going to be fun to see them out on the field and playing. Sam Darnold, he took advantage of his 22 reps with 12 completions, and Sam Darnold right now is just he's back to he had the one bad day earlier in the week. And since then, he's been back to consistency. And this is what we've seen from Sam Darnold since day one. He just comes out. As soon as his first read is open, boom, gets rid of the football. No matter where that is, he's just getting rid of the football at a high rate. And so Darnold is doing what you want within this offense and allowing playmakers to make plays. He hasn't had as many opportunities for the defense to create turnovers. He hasn't had very many turnover-worthy balls. So it's been good for Sam Darnold, and I think the 49ers got to be really happy and excited with their quarterback situation. All these guys have a different skill set, but all of them can operate the offense at a high rate, and they all are right now. And so I think that overall is a good news for the 49ers. And let's be honest, the quarterback room is going to be on display, and it's going to be a topic of conversation all throughout the preseason and all these games. But the good news is the 49ers can feel good that they have a very good quarterback room. I'm going to take this opportunity that, hey, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. 3 subscribers away from 4K. Help me go over the edge if you haven't subscribed yet. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on Believe and on audio platform, please give me a 5-star rating. I really appreciate that. So wide receivers, we talked a little bit about what they provide to this 49ers offense through the midst of training camp. But Deebo Samuel has continued his upward trend. And I know a lot of the conversations about Brandon Aiyuk, and it should be. Brandon Aiyuk has been absolutely spectacular. 28 catches during training camp, which is a crazy good stat. It just shows how relevant he is and how integral he's become to this 49ers offense. Now you throw in the fact that Deebo Samuel is the healthiest Deebo's ever been, the best shape Deebo's ever been, and now he's going out there and making these plays. And if you're going up over the top of Mooney Ward and catching a football, you're displaying what you are. And it's not just that. Deebo also caught a slant that he broke free. He would have been gone for a touchdown. Deebo Samuel is looking good. He's looking fresh. His routes are looking crisp. I think that Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk are trending in the right direction. And Brandon Aiyuk just continued to make more spectacular catches, doing the things he does. It's really remarkable. It really is. These two guys are just going to be tearing it up all season. I think the 49ers are very excited. I know the fan base should be really excited because those two guys are on it. And then you got Ray McLeod, and Ray McLeod was showing off his speed in the run game today, getting the ball and making a nice carry. And Ray still got that ability to do those Deebo-like things. So when Deebo's not out there, you got a guy that can go ahead and get it done. And I think the 49ers need to have guys like that. And I think this is why I think Ray McLeod is a lock for this football team, because he can run jet sweeps. He can run reverses. He can catch quick screens but then also has the speed to get vertical and get down the field. And I think ultimately he's a perfect complement to what the 49ers have with their first two receivers because he can play the Debo kind of role. And then Jawan Jennings consistently, he's still out there blocking well. He's making really spectacular catches over the middle of the field. Some good plays from Jawan Jennings. He continues to shine. Ronnie Bell getting involved in the offense still. So it's good to see Ronnie Bell making plays, and we've had hit or miss. So sometimes he's active and getting targeted, and sometimes not so much. But I think Ronnie Bell has put himself firmly in this competition. And I think once you hear what Steve Wilks says about competition later, it'll give you a better idea. Even though Wilks is defensive coordinator, I'm sure what he expresses when we talk about it and listen to the clip is going to give a really good idea of, how the 49ers feel about competition. Chris Conley continues to do his thing and show up. He's making catches and making catches and then exploding for big plays. So the 49ers have a little bit of a conundrum at the wide receiver position because here we are, we just talked about 6 wide receivers, and I didn't even mention Danny Gray, who had another good day, and yesterday had a great day. So they have 7 legitimate options at the wide receiver position. It's going to be a intense competition, and that's not including a guy like Tay Martin, who has been making plays and has been proving to be an important special teams presence. So overall, I mean, the 49ers offense, it just seems very stacked. So let's talk tight end, George Kittle. We talked about the deep pass down the field, and I think sometimes, when George Kittle's out there, you kind of just expect him to do the things that he's going to do. And because of that, he doesn't get talked about quite enough. But he's continued to look good. He knows exactly what he's supposed to do. He makes his blocks. He runs great routes. He makes contested catches. He's setting the tone, and young guys are starting to feed off that. Braden Willis has had now 3 practices where he's been targeted, 3+ times, and he's making catches out there. So he's starting to look the part. He's starting to get comfortable within the system. It's showing up in the passing game, and now we'll see if it shows up in the run game. He has been, pretty good again in the run game, but he could get better. And I think that's something Kyle Shady had talked about yesterday. And if you listen to the episode from yesterday, play the clip where Kyle's talking about Braden Willis and Cameron Latu and them adjusting. And I think it's, I think it's just something that's normal. And we'll see what happens again in preseason. As of right now, they still got a ways to go to be able to catch Charlie Warner and Ross Dwelly. But I do think they can get there here pretty soon. And then you've got, the O-line, consistent, Colt McKivitz doing his thing. John Feliciano returned to practice, and he was playing guard in front of Aaron Banks. So Banks out with the concussion protocol. They put in Feliciano. So you're seeing that is a nice step forward. He's the number 1 guy. He comes back from a shoulder strain. And so you don't really lose a lot of cohesiveness. He's in there standing in next to Trent Williams. Do the 49ers prefer Aaron Banks? Yes, but it's nice having a guy like Feliciano that can step in and play, at either guard spot or center if needed and hold up. He can anchor. He's strong. He moves people at the point of attack. So I think that is really solid. And the fact that we continue to see good days from Colt McKivitz, I think is exactly what the doctor ordered for the 49ers offensive line. Because ultimately, they're going to be the reason that those quarterbacks are able to complete passes or not. And a lot of focus is put on the quarterbacks, but the offensive line, the skill players, tight ends are very important to a quarterback's success. And I think that, it's often kind of ignored, and I get it. The quarterbacks definitely catch everyone's attention, and there's a real competition there. But there's a competition at a lot of positions, and some of these competitions are going to fly right under the radar, but pay huge dividends for the 49ers. As far as running backs go, TDP, he's still having a very good training camp, continues to have explosive plays. TDP is getting himself primed and ready to have a really good preseason, and I think it's getting close to him locking up that running back 4. I've always thought he was going to be able to do it. If you listen to the show, I've been high on TDP for a while now. And I think he's going out there and displaying it on the field. So the 49ers have 4 very good running backs. Of course, Elijah Mitchell is out with the abductor, but with Elijah Mitchell in the mix and CMC being just special. I mean, he's great at everything, catching, blocking, running. He could do it all. And, throwing even last year, right? But he's just got all of it. And then Jordan Mason's been doing really well as well. So you have Ronald Aiyuk and Kalen Laburn, and those two guys are trying to compete, and they've got some potential, but cracking this 49ers running back room is going to be tough. Those two guys are going to have heck of preseason, and if they do, maybe they'll have a shot. But right now, I think this running back room is looking like it's going one way for sure. So let's go to the defensive side of the ball. And on the defensive side of the ball, I want to talk about D-line first, because there was a couple of things that Coach Steve Wilks talked about in this episode. And one of those was Taco Charlton. And Taco Charlton, the way he's adjusting, it's been pretty good. His first day out there, watching him, you could tell already, wow, he's got a pretty good feel of pass rush, but was also doing pretty good at knowing when he was supposed to squeeze things. I think it's just a veteran, ability about him. But he is definitely still learning the scheme and all that. But I think that Taco Charlton's actually becoming a realistic possibility for the 49ers 53-man roster. Some of that, you got Darryl Johnson out of the way because of the injury. So there's a clearer path. And also Robert Beal still not practicing. So I think that, there's opportunities right now. We don't know what's going on with Beal. We don't know when he'll be back. But listen to what Steve Wilks had to say about Taco Charlton.
Well, I tell you this, Taco came off the plane and he was just making play after play after play the other day. And I was very impressed with that because, number one, we needed the reps, but he got in and made it seem like he had been here for a week. So he's still learning the defense. It's going to take him some time, but when he's in there, he goes full speed, which I love. And most importantly, he's just continuing trying to work on just the fundamentals that we talk about at that position.
Well, I mean, Taco Charlton, he got off the plane, he just stepped in, and Steve Wilks is excited about, what he's doing. Of course, he said, hey, it looks like he's been here for a week, but he's still got to learn the scheme. He's still got a ways to go. And I'm sure Coach Wilks is excited about, letting Taco Charlton be involved in the competitions, because he is long and he does have athletic ability, and he's been involved in a lot of different schemes. So he has a basic understanding. He's seen opposing offenses, but now maybe he can put it together. He's a lot leaner than when he was drafted. He's about 260 pounds now, and he used to go close to 275. So maybe that's added quickness. He used to run a 4.9 coming out of college. Maybe he's a little bit quicker, but I think what we're seeing is he's got a really nice eclectic group of pass rush moves. So he's been working up the field pretty high and then working back inside, using his long limbs to help him get back into the quarterback. So he's having some really good success. I want to see where it progresses. I want to see how it happens in the preseason. But the good news is maybe the 49ers have found a guy in Taco Charlton late that could potentially help this football team. And when it comes to that defensive end spot, we've been talking all offseason about who is going to be the defensive end opposite of Nick Bosa. It's been a huge conversation point. And here you go, the 49ers, Steve Wilks is going to talk about exactly where this competition is and what he thinks about competition and what they've decided between coaches. And it was actually asked about the defensive end position, but I thought his answer gave a really good idea for all positions, and I bet this is even mirrored to the offense.
I think that's exactly what it is. This competition is tight. And I would say this really for the whole group, and I mentioned this with the staff last night, we're really not going to see a separation or a change until we go against someone else. So I'm excited about, here in a week, I believe it is, that we go up to Vegas and play the Raiders. So we'll see exactly where we are at that point.
We're going to know more when you start playing another team. When you start playing the Raiders, then you're going to have an idea of where these guys are. But right now, what you're evaluating when you're evaluating these players is their technique, that they know the scheme inside and out. They know where to line up, that they're picking up, different keys that the opposing side is giving you, whether you're on offense or defense. Those are the types of things you're looking at. And you're wanting to see that consistency as they stack reps every single day in practice because you're working towards a peak of that regular season of getting there and having that consistency in your performance. So they're not going to decide a lot of these things until they get through those games, because those games are really going to reveal how that technique is displayed on the field and how they play against different teams with different techniques, and also understanding different schemes. So I think that's when the evaluation process takes another step forward. I think they have a basic idea right now of who these players are, and I think they're just trying to hone their skills, and then it's all going to be revealed. Now, do they have an inkling? I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure they do. But you want it to always feel like a competition. One thing we used to always tell our players is, hey, he said, you know what, everyone's name and the depth chart is in pencil. We can easily erase you, move you down, and move someone into your spot. You have to consistently do it to be able to hold down your spot. So the 49ers linebacker room, they've been making plays all training camp, whether that's Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, also Marcelino McCrary-Ball, D. Winters yesterday making plays. So these guys have been consistently doing things. And Steve Wilks was asked about the linebackers at the Sam linebacker spot because Oren Burks was getting the original snaps at Sam linebacker. He looked solid. And then he had some sort of an injury that was somewhat limiting him. And that allowed Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles to step in. And then, of course, yesterday when Dre Greenlaw had his vet day, they had DFF playing Will, and then they had Marcelino McCrary-Ball taking some of those reps as well. And when Coach Steve Wilks was asked about it, he gave a really good answer. I kind of covered a few of these guys about where they sit in this linebacker competition and what it's going to take to be the starting Sam linebacker for the San Francisco 49ers.
Consistency across the board, is the key for us at all positions. It's a tight race, OB Burks is doing a tremendous job. Marcelino made a great play at the end of the game, in the practice rather. And then you also see Flan. So I like the mere fact that when Fred and Greenlaw take a day off, I feel like we're not missing a beat. So that's definitely encouraging. So I'm excited about the backups and how they're performing.
Going to take consistency. You're going to have to continue to do it. And he talked about Oren Burks, and Marcelino McCrary-Ball, and that they've been able to catch his attention. He thought that Oren Burks has looked good, but hey, DFF is in the mix as well. And I think it caught a lot of the reporters a little off balance that he didn't mention the rookies when he was talking about the Sam linebacker position. So one of the other reporters said, hey, what about the rookies? And Coach Steve Wilks had this to say about D. Winters and Jalen Graham.
I think they're making progress as well. When I was talking about Jalen the other day, he's so athletic, and that's what we loved about him coming out of Purdue. Could run, could cover in the slot. But he had a couple of plays the other day that was phenomenal for just being physical, coming down the hill on the offensive lineman, using his hands. So that's always encouraging because that's what we pride ourselves on, being a physical defense.
So Jalen Graham is doing it in the run game, and I've seen that firsthand. D. Winters, Jalen Graham have both been making plays in the run game, and then both have looked pretty good in coverage. And Jalen Graham probably a little bit more during one-on-ones, where D. Winters has kind of excelled is when you get into team drills, 11-on-11s. That's where he does really well. So I think the 49ers are happy with their young rookie linebackers, but I'm curious to see what that development's going to look like when they get into the preseason. Because there's still a competition to go, and the 49ers have how many spots available? It's not going to be easy to get one of those spots. Let's just say that you have Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Oren Burks as locks to make this roster. Burks because of his special teams prowess, and I think right now he's the leader in the clubhouse to be Sam linebacker. You still have to find roster spots for the two rookies, Marcelino McCrary-Ball. And if you do that, you're keeping 6 linebackers. That means you're releasing DFF, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, and you're releasing Curtis Robinson. So it's going to be tough sledding in this linebacker room. But every single one of these guys have had good days. McCrary-Ball has been flashing recently. D. Winters has been flashing recently. And my belief is with D. Winters, the more he understands the scheme and the more he gets comfortable within his reads in the scheme, his instincts are so good. he's going to start flashing even more. His footwork and technique is on a really good place. I love his footwork. He just has to get that good feel, and that's when he's going to really start exploding. So I'm very excited about him overall. Now, let's talk about the secondary a little bit, because Tashaun Gibson, I think a lot of people, were very happy the 49ers brought him back, but then there's been some conversations, about Jair Brown when he was drafted. Like, hey, at some point, Jair's going to take over for Gibson. Well, I don't think that's going to happen in year one, and part of the reason I say that is Tashaun Gibson continues to impress at training camp. Even though he's been in the league, this is going to be 11 years, he's not showing any age. He's just showing wisdom, intelligence, and athletic ability. And he's had multiple interceptions now in training camp, and all of them are really significant and good plays. He's been doing a good job. He definitely understands what this defense is trying to do in the secondary. I've seen him on a few occasions, instructing players where to be, shifting depending on what the offense is doing. He's calling those shifts sometimes. Maybe Fred's not in, or maybe Fred is doing something else and Gibson takes care of the secondary. I think it's been a really good thing to have Gibson, and I think he's given the 49ers that consistency, as he kind of stabilized everything with Jimmy Ward moving on. So very excited about where Gibson's going, and he's making plays every single day. So he's still continuing on that turnover trajectory, and he had 32 interceptions so far in his career. He continues to make plays, and I expect him to do that. I think Jair Brown's time will come. I think there could be some 3 safety looks this year, but I don't expect him to take over Tashaun Gibson, not the way Gibson has been playing. And then one of the guys who gets maybe the most conversation when I'm live, or when people jump into my chat and things, is about Deshaun Jameson from Texas. And so Steve Wilks was asked about Deshaun Jameson, and I'm going to let Wilks talk about him, and then I'll kind of talk about my feelings on Jameson, because, yes, Jameson does flash, but, yeah, people are definitely loving what Jameson provides, that's for sure.
Very impressed, very impressed. And I think some of the receivers were talking about him the other day. He has definitely made strides from the spring and just came back and built on to his repertoire and just his toolbox. I think the one thing that he's doing with his technique, he's staying more square in his back pedal, which is allowing him to be able to see and visualize more of the field, route concepts, see the quarterback. And he's doing a great job of breaking on the ball. His man-to-man technique, he's great at the line of scrimmage, and he's doing a good job at the top end of the route. The point of emphasis that I talk about all the time, that's where we got to win. So you see him doing a lot of good things.
He's very impressed, and there's a lot to be impressed about. And he's talking about, staying square in the back pedal. We heard Tarvarius Ward talk yesterday, about slowing the back pedal down. And so there are little tricks of the trade that Steve Wilks is bringing to the 49ers. And he even talked later on in this press conference, and you can go listen to the full press conference over on YouTube with the 49ers. But he was talking about them staying square is a different technique than they used in the years past. So Steve Wilks changing some things, and Jameson is a guy that they're very happy about. And I think the one thing about Jameson that's been noticeable is his confidence. He's a very confident player. When he's in his back pedal, he looks nice and comfortable. He doesn't he doesn't get confused very often. So he waits till the last second to go ahead and make his break. So at some point, they're going to start challenging him. They'll figure out what his depth is as far as when he wants to roll over, and flip his hips and run with a wide receiver, and then they'll break it off a little bit deeper. So it's going to be a give and take. But I think Jameson has put himself in a category where he can now compete for a job. And we'll see what happens with Darrell Luter Jr. if he's able to get back out there and compete, what Ambry Thomas does, because Steve Wilks talked about he's been putting in extra work with Ambry Thomas as well. So the cornerback position is definitely not figured out for the 49ers, but I think it's nice that we're going to have young guys competing for a potential spot. And I think we can get excited about, a guy like Jameson and what he could provide this 49ers team in 2023. To me, it was overall a great day of practice. Day 8 goes down in the books as a positive. There was positive on offense. There was positive on defense. And that's really what you're looking, just building these days, stacking these days as you work towards the preseason. And ultimately, September 10th versus Pittsburgh, you want to be the best team that you could possibly be. And all working towards putting that 53-man roster together. And I think they're on the right track. There'll be another day of practice tomorrow, and then they'll have a day off on Sunday. So the 49ers will be back at it, and that means we'll be back at it too. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe. And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.